Welcome, student organization leaders. Hope you are well. We are into week 6 of this semester, and hopefully your organization is chugging along. We know that there's been some challenges this year, and yet we also know how important student organizations can be in the life of the campus, but also just in students' lives. And so I really encourage you to really focus on your org this next week or so and really attempt to connect with students in a meaningful way. Partly how we do that is actually having really good meetings. And a lot of us maybe have been to meetings and know what's bad and know what's good, but not maybe understand the elements of how we actually make an effective meeting. And I'm stealing this title of this presentation, Death by Meeting, from a book that I read several years ago by Patrick Lencioni. And he lays out just how bad meetings can be and how really that impacts an organization. And so I hope this presentation can be helpful for you as you think about ways in which you engage the students that are interested in your organization. So why are meetings bad? What's wrong with them? What's like the causation of kind of sitting through a half an hour class or meeting and being like, oh man, this is not a great use of my time. And we've all experienced that. The first one is that often meetings can be really disengaging. So if I'm just kind of like can tune out and other people are talking and I don't have to engage, that becomes a real problem with bad meetings. And so we want to counteract that, and we'll talk about some strategies around that a little later. The second one is often the meetings are too long. We know that engagement and people's ability to listen is probably maxed out at about 6 minutes or so. And so if we have meetings that are way too long, we're going to be really struggling, and often those will turn into bad meetings that students don't and won't appreciate. The third thing is that they're not really well planned. And that's the onus on us. If we are going to do a meeting, we have to ensure that we put the work in order for that to be a great meeting. And lastly, they're not facilitated really well. And I'm using that word, I think an important piece is like a meeting needs to be facilitated. And that means someone is actually attempting to read the room, change things up to ensure that that meeting is effective. And so I want to share you 4 really simple principles counteracting these things that we just talked about. And then I'm going to have you watch a short 8-minute video that I really enjoyed, and then have for you to think about a little bit how it might influence your ability to run effective meetings. One of the first challenges that we face when attempting to run a meeting is ensuring that the people at that meeting are engaged. And I think that's going to be primarily the responsibility of the facilitator, of the leader. And I think you have to think this in understanding where people are at, understanding your surroundings, understanding what people just came into the meeting, what they're doing afterwards. How can you ensure they're fully present in that meeting? And I want to suggest that it really makes sense to have a big hook at the beginning of each meeting. So what can your hook be? What can you grab people's attention and ensure they are fully and actively present? And I think that can be something that requires conversation. So often small group work can be a great way to bring people into a conversation. It could be a compelling discussion that you want to create some even conflict right away so people have a chance to get engaged. Think of a meeting somewhat like similar to a movie. If the movie doesn't grab your attention right from the get-go, it can be a really challenging movie to enjoy. And I think same thing with our meetings. We need to start each meeting with a bang and plan that out and ensure that you grab people's attention. And then make sure that you're doing changes of state every 6 to 7 minutes where you're mixing up the meeting, giving the opportunity for new ways of kind of connecting to them to make sure they're fully present. The second challenge that we face is just that meetings are too long. And you'll notice that if a meeting's too long, it kind of reverts back to our first problem. There's a lack of engagement. A lot of what I'm reading is that a 30-minute meeting tends to be more and more what people are suggesting as far as the perfect length for a meeting. And That can be really challenging. A lot of us have a lot of things we want to get through, and so having a 30-minute meeting seems like really impractical. Why not try it? I'm interested in trying that and the different responsibilities I have. What does a 30-minute meeting look like where you can be really focused and active? Another strategy is having different types of meetings. In Patrick's book, Death by Meeting, he lays out that we try to do too much in one meeting, and so have some meetings that are maybe business oriented for your organization where you cover the details, for example. Other meetings that might be more building community within the team and getting to know each other. Maybe a third meeting, maybe something around strategy and thinking about taking the org to your next level. And what does that look like from 30,000 feet? And so ensuring that you have a right timed meeting to ensure people can be fully present, I think is important. So think about that as you're planning your next meeting is how long can you shrink your meeting to being in order to ensure that hopefully it's a great meeting. The third thing we have to overcome is the lack of preparedness. The adage that I use for this is that for every meeting that you have, if I'm having a 30-minute meeting, let's say, that I've prepped for 30 minutes for that meeting to do well. And that may be like, wow, that's a lot of time. But if you think about creatively engaging people, that might means bringing in videos, writing down discussion questions, understanding the timing of different segments. You do really have to prepare as a facilitator on how to have a great meeting. So often we jump into a meeting as a facilitator and we really haven't done the work. And so create an agenda, send it out to people prior to the meeting so they know what's going on. Kind of detail your transitions between meetings. What kind of ways are you going to do it? What small group, large group, videos, different elements are you going to have in your meeting to ensure that it's an effective meeting? And last but not least is really your role of a facilitator. And when I talk about this, it's reading the room. It's how do you ensure you have a plan, but you have to now adjust your plan as a facilitator to ensure that it's going well. And that means often being flexible with the plans that you have. Having plans but holding them loosely is an important concept in this. And I think the other thing as a facilitator you're looking for is which people are not contributing to the meeting and how do you ensure that you hear all the voices around the table. That's such an important part of an organization's success is to ensure that the org is benefiting from each and every person that's there. And maybe even noticing like who's not at the table. That's an important piece as a facilitator too, and ensuring that maybe at the next meeting you maybe have different voices that aren't represented in previous meetings. So as you think about that, that's an important element. The last I just want to talk about is online meetings. This is now the new thing. You can see we're even doing this online when typically this would be something we do in person. All the principles I just talked about apply to this particular format that we're in. I don't think it changes. It just makes it harder. So doing an online meeting, I think, ups the ante and the responsibility of a facilitator to do it well. So as you think about planning your next meeting, think about ensuring that you have engagement. Think about really having not too long of a meeting. Thirdly, make sure that you've really thought through how to facilitate that well, and you have a plan for that you've prepared, and that you're really making sure that once the meeting's running, you're being flexible and you're adjusting to kind of what's happening within that meeting. And so whether it's online or in person, we hope your meetings can be something that really benefits your organization. The last thing I'm going to have you do is watch this little video, the 3 steps to everyday get-togethers into transformative gatherings. Well, this doesn't particularly address meetings. I think her creativity in the way that she plans and organizes meetings is very important for us all to hear.